Okay, so this is our last Monday Night Mishlei of the season until further notice, which means either until later in the summer or until the beginning of the new year, or maybe even after. I don't know. I was looking at the calendar, and like a lot of the Yom Tovim fall out on Mondays this year, so like maybe like squeeze in a couple sessions, but then maybe like not starting until like after the Moadim. Who knows? Who knows what the future holds, right? If there's anything Mishlei tells us, then you should see the future. No. Okay, so today's pasuk is one that I don't know if it is going to be. Here's the thing. I'll tell you what the Radak says, but even before we read the pasuk, okay? He says, this is obvious and it repeats itself in different words. So whenever you see that, you're like, oh no, like, like if that's what the Radak thinks, then what are we gonna think? So we're gonna do our best, okay? So, but who knows how lengthy it's gonna be? Okay, Yiras Hashem. So this is 10:27. Yiras Hashem tosif yamim ushenos reshaim tiksorna. How would you translate that?
Fear of God adds to days.
Yep.
And
I'm actually gonna try. I don't know if this makes any difference. I'm gonna say it adds days instead of adds 2 days because it doesn't say two. But yeah, go ahead.
And hatred of Rishaim will shorten it.
This is shanos, like the plural of year. I don't know why it's in the feminine. I guess we use shanim and shanos, like plural of shana.
And the years of Rishaim is like it will be shortened.
Yeah, it will be shortened. Yeah. Okay, so that's the simple translation there. No translation difficulties here. Sadigon just says tiksorna is yiskatsru. They will be shortened. I don't know if he has to say that because when I first read this, I thought, wait, Avital, you might know this grammar better than I do. Can tiksorna be it feminine will shorten?
Wait, can you say that again?
Can tiksorna be it in the feminine, like a feminine subject? It will shorten, or she will shorten. Or am I imagining this?
I think it could be, but
okay.
I'm not
Because I didn't
positive.
get anyone who translated that way. That was what my grammar intuition said, and I thought it meant like fear of Hashem adds. See, you notice, for example, Yiras Hashem tosif yamim. It, meaning the fear of Hashem, adds days. Ushenos Rishayim tiksorna, and it shortens years of Rishayim. So I thought it meant that the fear of Hashem will shorten the years of Rishayim. But then I looked at the English here, and this is not a proof, but like our school says the fear of Hashem will increase days, but the years of the wicked will be shortened. That's like Saad Yigon. Living Nach says the fear of God prolongs life while the years of the wicked are shortened. That's also like Saad Yigon. And Alder says fear of Hashem, of the Lord lengthens one's days, but the years of the wicked are short, which I do not think is a good translation. So they just say it will be short. Okay. Okay. And Saad Yigon says the same thing. And then Targum, I think, is also literal, which is Dachalte Dalaka Tosif Yomasa. Fear of God increases days. Ushnei Rishie Nizaran. And I think that might, I don't know if this is actually like, actually, I was just in the middle of looking this up in the Jastro. Just give me 1 second here. Because Ze'er in Aramaic means small. I just want to know if it also means short. Ze'er. I will not be able to find it in time. Let me just look up one more place. I always forget to look up the Jasper before small or small number. Okay, fine. So it can mean small or small number. Fine. So really very simple translation here. Okay, fear of Hashem adds days, and the years of the wicked will be shortened.
Can I ask a grammar question that might lend itself to
Sure.
going back to the Sadigon's translation?
Yeah.
The Yitzkatzru, is that feminine or masculine?
I think it's, I mean, it is masculine, and I think he's just saying that the days will be cut short, but I also don't know enough grammar to say that for sure.
Okay, so I don't know if this is completely incorrect, but like, what if it's that like the Rishaim are the ones doing it instead of like?
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, like, that could be. All right, let's. I also, again, I don't know for sure, but oh, you know what? We actually have a clue. Give me 1 second. Okay, so the footnote in my Saad Yigon directed us to somewhere in the Moons of Videos, which is Saad Yigon's Hashkafa book. And I didn't look it up because I didn't think it was important, but now I'm questioning. Now I'm realizing that the footnotes are often helpful. Let's see, hold on a second. Okay, so let me just read. No, this might prejudice us. Okay, if we need to, we'll look up Sadigon. I hear what you're saying, Mayan, though. So let's say possibly they, i.e., the wicked, will. Uh-oh. Why is my keyboard sticking now? Okay, now it's back to normal. We'll cut them. We'll cut short the years. Wait, sorry. Let's say the wicked. It's like this, right? The wicked will cut short their years, like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going for.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Seems plausible to me.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Are we supposed to think about Avas Hashem in this pasuk? Because I know, at least for Rambam, it's like Yiras Hashem and then Avas Hashem.
Right. So I would say not, and I'd say not for two reasons. One is it doesn't say it, and and like once you're, it's true that the two experiences can go together, but it goes together the other way. Meaning, if you have Avas Hashem, then Yiras Hashem is the opposite side of that. But Yiras Hashem is not automatically Avas Hashem. Like you have, let's say, like the Ovid Meira, when it serves Hashem out of fear, is the level before serving Hashem out of love. So like so I'd say for it doesn't say it in the pasuk, so I wouldn't think of it from that. It doesn't automatically go together in this direction. And the third thing, which is just an interesting one now that you brought it up, is I don't know if it talks at all about Avas Hashem in Mishlei, which shouldn't surprise us because what Sefer focuses on Avas Hashem.
Shiurim.
Yeah, shiurim, right? Yeah. So my intuition is that your Mishlei is before Yiras Hashem. Okay, so what are the other questions here on the pasuk?
Why Yamim in the first half and Shanot in the second?
Okay, good. Why does the first half talk about days and the second half talk about years? It kind of makes it, I don't know if it makes me feel like at first I was like, you only get days, like that's not a good deal. And then I'm like, oh, but the other guy gets years cut off of his life. So like, okay, I'll take what I can get, But it definitely like if you were making a Mishlei commercial, you would probably say that Mishlei extends your life for years, and like it does seem like a little conservative, in its benefit touting that it says days. I don't know if I'm gonna I'll add that just as a subjective dimension of the subjective. Yeah.
Just in the Torah, though, this is worth pointing out, is Arichas Yamim is the
right.
So that's refers to long life.
Yeah. So if you just have the phrase in isolation, then Arichas Yamim it can mean like long days or years. But once you have days and then years, then it sounds like those are two different things. Now again, just full disclosure here, the Radak says the pasuk is repeating itself. Radak says the pasuk is obvious and it's repeating itself in the same in different words, So according to that, then Donnie's right that like, years and days could just be synonyms. But I do.
I wasn't trying to say that they're synonyms. I was trying to say that it's more a reference to sort of the structure of the Torah's way.
Okay, that could be also right. Could just using the Torah's language. Yeah, that's true. And then, so in other words, it could be using the Torah's language and then switching it up because it's a pasuk and the pasukim switch up the words.
And it becomes the same question as to why does the Torah refer to extension of life or extended life or prolonged in terms of days, not years.
Right. Yeah.
I think it applies.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Also, what do we mean by having fear of Hashem?
Okay. What do we mean by fear of Hashem in this context? And again, this is like it's almost it's a fitting pasuk to end the season on, right? To end the season of Mishlei learning on, because Yiras Hashem is like the foundation of Mishlei. So it'll be nice to like get back to a basic definition of Yiras Hashem, or a definition of Yiras Hashem re-examined.
Sorry.
Go. Oh, sorry. You can finish.
No, you go.
Thank you. Why is the first part of the sentence like I feel like the subject changes? Like the first one is the fear of Hashem adds days, and then the second one is like focus on the years. Do you get what I'm saying?
Okay. Why does the subject of the pasuk of the pasuk change from fear of Hashem to years? Right. That is a good question. I did not notice that question.
And I don't know if this is the same question, but this is what I was gonna ask. Meaning, shouldn't the second half of the pasuk say the opposite of fear of Hashem, like not having fear of Hashem?
Okay, so let's just say what are the opposites here.
Right.
So it seems like fear of Hashem versus, and I'm kind of ignoring Shifra's question for the sake of this question, just because I think Shifra's question stands on its own. But let's say if you just said it was a stylistic thing, it seems like fear of Hashem. Sorry, yeah, fear of Hashem versus the wicked, right? So what? In other words, you would expect the opposite of the wicked to be the righteous. So are we assuming that the Yiras Hashem here is a tzaddik? Is the person who fears Hashem in this pasuk a tzaddik, which is the opposite of the wicked? Okay,
Right.
Not what is the opposite?
And
What
also,
is-
can you have someone in between? Like
Yeah,
just
that's
neutral.
right. Yeah, right. So yeah, that's a good question. All right, good. That's gonna be a key question, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to think I'm gonna do it for
Oh.
our purposes here. I want to for this puzzle because it's such a first puzzle. I actually want to group the major questions and the minor questions. And minor questions can still be good questions, but I think I just want to. I think it'll help us in our analysis here. So let's go like this: minor questions, and then major questions. Yeah. And this is here. Yeah. Was there another question? Sounds like someone's underwater. I don't know who's underwater.
I have a,
Sorry.
go ahead. No, okay. I just have a question about the verbs. So what fear of Hashem? I'm just having trouble. Why does it say lengthens the days and the years of the wicked will be shortened, or fear of Hashem adds days and the years of the wicked will be like subtracted?
Okay,
Yeah,
so-
I don't know how to articulate that.
So, why is it adds versus shortens rather than adds and subtracts?
Takes away.
Yeah. right,
Also,
subtract.
isn't it will be rather like isn't the verb will be not shorten? At least the way we have it translated now.
Will be shortened. Well, the verb is shortened, and it's just in the future.
I mean, isn't shortened and subtract the same thing?
Shorten? No, not really. Katsar means to cut short, and shorten is when I'm saying shorten. Sorry, katsar is to cut short. So, did you ask if shorten and subtract is the same thing?
Yeah, meaning like
Yeah.
if we're we're saying I don't know who asked the question. I was about to do the same. That there's no middle ground here. It's either like you're adding. Nobody has like 70 years, and then Yiras Hashem gets you 75, and Rishayim gets you 65. It seems like it's one or the other. So it's just something shortened or subtracted from some allotments, whereon it seems like there's some base number on which you're adding.
Right. So I hear that, and it is possible that this question is just these are just synonyms. But let's convert that question into another question, which is practically speaking, what does it mean to add days or shorten years? Like, is there a fixed number which is modified by one's fear of Hashem or wickedness? And then this kind of also ties to Ariel's question, which I didn't write here, which is there a middle ground? In other words, i.e., are there people who just live out their days without lengthening or shortening them, right? Seems like the pasuk does allow for it, because if there's no middle ground, I mean, it doesn't. You don't have to say that, but it leaves open a room for it.
Also, another question is this literal or is this a representation of something else? And if it is a representation, then what's it a
Right.
representation
Okay.
of?
So let's just say, yeah. So let's do this. Practically speaking, what does it mean to add or shorten years? Let's say, is this literal or figurative? And then the mechanics. Is there a fixed number which is modified by one sphere of Hashem or wickedness? Blah blah blah. Yeah.
Also, we're just assuming that it's about life, right?
We are. Yeah. Is there another way to learn it?
Not really. I'm just like pointing that out.
Yeah,
I
we are.
guess.
Yeah. It's good that it's articulated the assumption though. Yeah.
Can we also ask like what's the message? of this?
Yeah. I mean, well, the message seems pretty simple. I mean, it's not simple. It seems pretty.
So can I rephrase? Like, obviously, yeah, have fear of Hashem,
Right.
duh. But like, what's
Like what's the chidush?
what's the substance of that? Like, practically, what is it going to do for my life?
Yeah. So
Aside from adding days, like maybe I don't want my days added. I don't know. Maybe I want to go fast. I mean, I don't know. I'm
Okay.
just saying, like,
Yeah. Okay, I hear. All right. So let's just say.
but I don't mean that. Just
on the basic message, I won't tell Hashem. I'm just kidding. Okay, what is beyond the basic message
Right.
of fear of Hashem equals good? What is the practical chidush, novel
Right.
insight? Yeah.
Also, how is it like hashgacha? I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah.
Or
yeah.
is
So,
it?
so let's add that to the practically speaking, which is what are the mechanics? Is this hashgacha, divine providence? Is this natural? Yeah. Good. We got a lot more questions than I was expecting. I feel like that's it. And I guess the question of, I don't feel like the need to ask the question, who is this directed to? Because I feel like that's going to be covered in when we do the practical chidush, and then also when we figure out why the pasuk only talks about Rishayim in the second half and then doesn't talk about anyone in the first half. We can ask it. We might as well.
Actually, can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Is that we're almost taking for granted that it makes sense that it's saying Yiras Hashem is the cause, which itself sounds like a chidush. I mean, Reishis Chachma Yiras Hashem. That's the first step, and the Torah has V'chartem Esachayim, and all the different consequences of a life of Torah and mitzvos. It would seem like now we're almost like equating like Yiras Hashem, which is step one, gives you the ultimate outcome. Like there's something a little begs the question, I guess.
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out where we would put that question, or if it's a new question, because when I'm hearing the question, I'm kind of hearing like Ariel kind of expressed a similar thing, which is like, fine, you lengthen your days, but where does that fit into the grand scheme of things? Like, is that the goal? Is that like a means? Is that a perk? Where does this benefit? I'm gonna put both aspects of the question. Where does this benefit of length of days fit into the grand scheme of the good? And then the other aspect that I'm hearing in Donnie's question is if fear of Hashem is the beginning of knowledge, which Mishlei says, not exactly sure how to conclude this question. If fear of Hashem is the beginning of knowledge,
how does it bring about the ultimate end, right?
Yeah,
of life or extending life?
This seemingly ultimate good. Yeah. Meaning
Wait, is Reishis Chachma Yiras Hashem from Mishlei?
So Reishis Chachma Yiras Hashem is from Tehillim, and then Reishis Da'as Yiras Hashem Reishis Da'as is from Mishlei, which I copied and pasted the pasuk here. Just this is good for us to go over, by the way, just for basic definition purposes. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna move this up in the world. Hold on. Let's get. Don't look at the commentaries. Yeah, I wanted to. I feel like we've talked about this before, but I just wanted to review it here. So this is what I call the crowning pasuk of Mishlei, because it's the first non-introductory pasuk, or the first pasuk that's not like part of the not editor's intro, but like the back of the book, cover. So fear of Hashem is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and discipline. Okay, so that is the opening pasuk of Mishlei, and then the middle pasuk of Mishlei. I don't know if it's the exact middle, but the middle pasuk ish of Mishlei is another statement. I know we've done this year. Fear of Hashem is the discipline of wisdom, and before honor is humility. Yeah. So those are two clues. There's also a Yiras Hashem pasuk at the very end of Mishlei in Eishos Chayil, but it doesn't really seem to define it. It says, Sheker achein v'hevel hayofi isha Yiras Hashem he tis halal. That, what did I just say? Sheker achein, like charisma or grace is false, and beauty is hevel, is nothingness. Isha Yiras Hashem, a woman who fears Hashem, she shall be praised.
May I ask another question?
Yeah.
And this should be with question number 2. Why leave it out? Why leave out the wicked or the fool, or I guess is Mishnah trying to convey a message by specifically keeping it vague? Or meaning, like, can it be the fool and the wicked, or is it just the wicked?
Okay, yeah. So why is the wicked singled out? Is it just the wicked, or are there others included in this category? Yeah, good question. Okay. All right. Wow, we got more questions than we can fit, so we're gonna try. Yeah. Okay. Boom. Boom. Okay. We don't need the other pasuk. We'll just get the questions. Okay. Are we ready for thinking?
Mhm.
Can you maybe show the bottom 2
Oh yeah. Okay.
things a second?
Oh man.
Maybe just for a second. That's fine.
No. We can make this work.
No, it's good. I can see it. Oh, cool.
Slightly better.
Wait, before thinking minute, question on a question.
Yeah.
I don't see which one it is, but on hashgacha, does it really matter? Meaning, like, I know we've discussed this a lot, so like, should we really be focusing on that question at all?
It's not necessary to focus on the question, but many times in Mishlei, understanding the cause and effect does actually affect how you engage with that decision-making process. And so it's worth asking questions. Sometimes it doesn't, but like, I feel like in order to understand the what Mishlei is teaching, then it's a good idea to do it. But you're right, it might not matter for our purposes. Okay, so let us take our thinking minute. Okay, so as usual, we are going to start off with half-baked ideas, not full approaches. So, Mark, if you have a half-baked idea or an approach, then we'll start with you because you raised your hand.
I definitely have half-baked everything.
Okay.
So I want to take the approach, maybe start answering the question of whether it's hashgacha or natural, and I think that will lead into some of the other questions of who's this directed to, and is there a middle ground? From my exceptionally limited experience with Mishlei, it's sort of it addresses naturalistic outcomes based on your personality types. So someone who is Yiras Hashem and approaches that kind of life is not inclined to produce enemies. They're not going to be impacted as much by anxiety and other deficiencies of the psyche that will shorten their life. Whereas a Russia generally will do things that will create enemies, will cause others who want to bring them down. I have some recollection of other pasukim where we've spoken about that of how Russia can create and antagonistic people who and that's where the approaches of shortening your days. So
Right.
you could have like a middle ground of somebody who's not really a thinker. They don't approach things from as a chacham or I know the pasuk doesn't use that, but they approach it in that they just go through life. And their days are more shortened because they don't produce enemies. They don't have as much anxiety and other things. They're just happy-go-lucky. So I think the pasuk is talking towards that person and letting you know it's like you can't really. It's not beneficial to stay in the middle. If you become a Russia, you give into your taivas, then you'll have those who want to take you down. But if you become gracious, if you're a Hashem, that will produce a happy life where you'll spend your days because you'll be more at peace with yourself.
Okay, good. So I'm going to so I have three quick comments on it. The first one is regarding the second half. Then I think that definitely fits in with what actually we've been doing in this chapter a lot of, or not a lot, but like recently of the thing that the Russia fears is going to come to him because he's living a lifestyle that's just driving for more and more power and dominance. And that's going to make a lot of enemies. And it's also an impossible goal. And he's going to he's going to arouse the jealousies and the ambitions of people who are like-minded who are going to want to bring him down. So that definitely fits into the second half. Regarding the first half, I'm going to actually hold off on commenting because one aspect of what you're saying is similar to the approach I was taking. And I want to leave it till the end. Another one is similar to the approach Rabino and Yona takes, which I also want to examine after we hear everyone's approaches. So noted and good approach or approaches. All right, next.
I mean, I have also I think very half-baked.
Sure.
That I was thinking okay, what is fear of God? Essentially it's a fear of realizing there's something really above you. And it led me to think about in Pirkei Avot, how you're supposed to have a leading body. Otherwise people will swallow each other whole. Mm-hmm. So I think this is
leading
almost
body, like a government, you mean when you say leading body?
I forgot what the I don't want to misquote anything, but I think it was talking about how if there really wasn't a a ruling body, let's say laws and people to rule over and put things almost create a human created, I guess in a way, morality for people to follow, then people would just basically eat each other alive.
Right. I think this is the one that you're thinking of, just to get the quote here. Just 1 second. Yeah, it's Rabbi Chanina. This is in Pirkei Avos 3:2. Rabbi Chanina Sagana Kohanim Omer Havim Mispala Bishloma Shal Malchus. You should daven for the peace of the Malchus of the monarchy. Ilamali Mora'a, because if people didn't fear it, each es re'ehu chaim bela'o, then each man would swallow his fellow alive, or would his comrade.
Yeah. So I was thinking almost on a grander scale, this is past that. Once you have a government, and people follow that, you follow the laws. But once you realize there's a God, even past that, your actual days will be lengthened. That's beyond the law.
I hear what you're saying. So in other words, just to repeat what I think you're saying, and then you tell me if this is accurate. Is so if fear of any governing body is going to result in a net good for the society because it'll prevent people from just acting impulsively or acting on their raw like desires and just like totally taking advantage of people. So then certainly if the society has a fear of Melech Malchei Hamlachim, like the King of Kings who is over everything, so then it's going to have even greater of an effect. And so it'll add days for everybody in the sense that like everyone's going to like live a better life. Like I don't know why, but and this is not an example of Yiras Hashem, but like what I'm thinking of here is like, and this might just be total stereotyping or whatever. We're gonna go full on like positive racism here. Is in Japanese society, nowadays, not talking about like all the Civil War days and lots of bloodshed or like World War II or whatever, but like, it seems to me from my limited perspective that in terms of the way that people are relate to each other in Japan and a certain like basic like communal sense of responsibility, there's just a lot less crime and a lot less of like pure victimization of stuff. And like I know the time that this got a lot of attention was in the Fukushima disaster and the tsunami and everything like that, and like no one looted and like everyone helped out, and so I'm not saying that comes from Yiras Hashem, but I'm saying that Kal v'chomer, if you had a Yiras Hashem that people recognized God, ruling over everything and creating man and like giving these laws, it would just like create this net good in society that people would live longer days because they would be not harming each other and benefiting each other in many ways. Is that like
Yeah, and even like I was thinking on like let's say like you have companies that are producing plastics or whatever it is that like they know are ultimately like whatever, I'm not going into plastics now, but like fumes and everything are really like, they know they're like carcinogenic and it doesn't dispose of anything. But like if there was this ultimate fear, I think then people would look into more like, okay, like I'm the CEO and I make a lot of money versus like, okay, but there's like a God above and he values life and like therefore,
Yeah, okay, good. So I'll tell you what I really like about that is that the pasuk doesn't say who gets the days. So it doesn't say, in other words, it doesn't say that the days of tzaddikim will be lengthened. It doesn't even say that the days, I don't know, it just says days will be lengthened. And your interpretation fits in very well with that because it's just saying like, yeah, all around, like length of days all around. And the interesting thing also is like, one might add, I just said the word add because the pasuk says that. One might ask the question of, well, if everyone is getting all these good days, then aren't the Rishaim going to benefit? And the pasuk is really saying, no, there's a net default good that people are going to get, but the Rishaim's days will be cut short because of like, I know you weren't explaining that necessarily, but like, Mishleic reasons, like in other words, like days will still be lengthened on the whole, but the wicked's behavior that they do, because it's so, they make themselves into a magnet of they basically have a target on their back, then they'll cut short their years, even though they're in a society that would have by default granted them length of days. Okay, good. I like that idea.
It's funny that you just said that because literally I was about to say that idea based off what Avital said. And just one more thing I was going to say is that I think it's interesting that it's not even just like, it is the whole society, but it's that the tzaddik, again, I feel like it's the same theme. I'm assuming it's a tzaddik. It doesn't necessarily have to be, but that he, at the end of the day, it's not only benefiting him, but it's also adding days, like you were saying, to like everyone, like the whole society. But the Russia, like he's just not being affected by that. But I think it's interesting to also compare. I was thinking of other pasukim we did and how like the Russia doesn't necessarily want to be helped, like when we're doing like the Ksil and the Avil and the Russia, and how like I think we said the Avil doesn't want to be helped. So if the Russia just had a different mindset, then he would be included in that, pocket of people.
Yeah. Okay, good. Ariel?
Yeah, honestly, so well, I think everyone kind of is like touching upon this, but I think that maybe you could say that fear of Hashem is really like, fearing like the system as a whole, meaning like the laws and following the, like the mitzvos and you know, even in the location where you live, Dina Malchus Adina, you know, which would mean that it's not exclusive to tzaddikim.
Right.
You know, because I think this is what Mark was saying. You know, if everyone is on that path, you know, then you'll just live like a peaceful lifestyle that's not gonna create or attract any harm.
Right.
Oh,
sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. No. Yeah. If you want to say something, feel free.
I was just going to reiterate the point I made before, that I think, without saying what I think the idea is, I think it really is significant that the pasuk does not say that Yiras Hashem increases days for tzaddikim.
Right.
It really does imply for everybody, whether you say it like Avital's way, like on a societal level, or whether you say like the way that, you know, like Ariel's saying now. But I do think that the chidush is going to come from that first half of the pasuk.
Right, which I actually do like Avital's point, because it's I think it's definitely, it could also apply on a societal basis, because like look at like Sodom, you know, like that entire, you know, place was you know, destroyed because everyone there was a Russia. I mean, like as a society, you know, they fell apart, you know.
Right.
And I also could see, you know, as a society, if, you know, everyone's following what they're supposed to be doing, it'll only increase and lengthen their, you know, societal, you know, I don't know, increase their societal days or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Now, I also want to, you know, see if I can answer the question of why, you know, days and then years.
Sure.
I think that it's easier to, I think it's a lot harder to add on years on a, you know, on someone who's following, you know, the laws, because, you know, it's a harder goal to get to. And I'm being a little descriptive, and maybe someone can help me be more, you know, concrete here. But like if you're a Russia, you know, like Russia's nature is such that, you know, if something, you know, if there's harm for Russia, if something bad happens to Russia, like it's a lot. There's like a huge qualitative difference. Like it's a lot more impactful on the Russia, which will completely. It's like remember that pasuk we were doing, like with like the hurricane or whatever.
Yeah, right.
I think like it just completely will destroy him.
Yeah.
You know, very fast, and like that can, you know, I think it could be. I don't know if it's literal or figuratively, but like, you know, much more of a harm than, you know, than like, and I don't know why it would be different for you know, the person who fears Hashem. Why is it only days? But or maybe someone can help me out over there. But
I have an idea for the first half, which I'm holding off on. I hear your intuition, and I think just to add a little bit to the Russia thing, Rishaim are the way we've been really learning about Rishaim in this parak is that they really are trying to go for something which is much larger than life, that is just completely fantasy based and ambitious, to the point where like I mean, everyone but them, you know, not everyone but them, but like someone looking from an objective perspective could just see like of course you're not going to be able to succeed in doing this. And I think there's a phenomenon of like when you strive for something that is completely unrealistic and arouses people's antagonism, then when you fall, you're going to fall much more, you know, precipitously. Like getting, you know, like look at how many kings in Sefer Malachim got killed by their, how many evil kings got killed by their like henchmen, you know, like it's just a dramatic thing. It's just, you know, or like mafiosos, or, you know, it's just a it's just, you know, yeah, you're gonna have a much more dramatic loss. I don't want to say for the first half until later, but
that's all right. And also just one more point. I think that like what was bothering me at first was why doesn't it also mention the fool, right?
Yeah.
You know, because the fool could also be doing completely stupid things, and it could harm him as well.
Right.
Right. So, but I think that the fool, I would also say that the fool can also have some fear of Hashem.
Okay.
Because a fool is not necessarily, he's not anti, you know, following the system. He's not gonna, I don't think he's gonna like destroy that system or you know, rebel against that. I think he's just living within the system, but trying to, maybe manipulate the system to get what he wants, but not necessarily rebelling.
Well, it depends on what kind of fool you're talking about, because we had that shiur in Mishlei that we devoted to this topic, which was that the Nar and the Pesi are misguided, and they might make bad decisions, but they're not intrinsically against Yiras Hashem. But the Evil and the Ksil are, and that was the pasuk that we read down here, is that Yiras Hashem Reshit Das Chachma Umusar Evilim Bazu. Fools despise wisdom and discipline. And that, I think when we explained that in that shiur, we were saying how they cannot tolerate the fact that they're subject to a reality that's greater than themselves. Like they just can't, that was the puzzle we did about how like they can't tolerate it so much that they won't even get benefits that the tzaddik is giving them for free, because he's associated with that lifestyle.
Right. So I guess then the question is, according to that, why not mention the fool?
Right.
Also, because I was trying to have a little bit more sympathy to the fool.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I think there is a straightforward answer to why it doesn't mention the fool. I mean, anyone else want to take a guess as to why, just to answer that question, why it only focuses on the Rishayim and not the fool?
I mean, the Rishayim specific. I would like. Yeah, I was just saying, like the Rishayim specifically are against Yiras Hashem. Like I feel like that.
We just said that. We just said that the.
I think the Ksilim, though, I feel like it's less of like literally at Hashem. It's like more about like intrinsic because he doesn't want to be subjected to it. Whereas I feel like the Rush has more negative feelings directed toward it. I don't know. I'm not being articulate, but I do feel like there's a big difference between a Russia and the Ksil in terms of like how they view Hashem.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, I'm not 100% convinced, just because again, like we just, it's definitely Evilim despise Chachma and Musar, and Chachma and Musar is Yiras Hashem, as we see here. Yiras Hashem, Chachma and Musar, So, pasuk does seem to say that.
So I wonder if some element of like fear of God is natural to have, and that kind of fool doesn't like that they have it. Like it makes them uncomfortable, whereas maybe a Russia is someone who's gotten to the point where they have rejected it and like they usurped that natural part of themselves so that they don't even have it.
I see. Yeah, I do agree with your statement that there is a Yiras Hashem that is natural. Like everyone does realize, like if you, like anyone living in the world realizes that like there is a system of lawfulness that Hashem set up, that if you like try to just, if you try to ignore gravity, like you're going to get hurt, and if you try to like, look, cross the street without looking both ways, you're gonna get hit by a car. Like, so there's an awareness of a system that's greater outside of yourself, that's greater than you, that impacts you. And the fools don't like the implications of that. And so they will reject it. And I hear what you're saying, Zach, is that, the rush is more far gone in that sense in terms of like overriding it. I think I was gonna say something similar, which is that,
maybe this pasuk is just directed towards the fool, and that's why there's no middle. The fool is the person in the middle who's you're giving advice to. Say, look, you're trying to stand here in the middle, say him, but it's really you have two choices. You can either be a Russia or you can be a Yiras Hashem. There's no real middle ground.
Okay, so I think I was going to say that. I think this is the same thing. Is really there are three groups in the pasuk. Okay, there's the Rishayim who are actually they lack Yiras Hashem and they're wicked. That wickedness will cut their life short. Then on the other side of the spectrum, there's Yiras Hashem, and that's going to increase days, which I haven't explained yet. And in the middle, you have the people who are the fools, who basically, not that they're going to increase and not that they're going to cut years off, but they're just going to get the consequences of their actions. They might live out their days, they might not, depending on how, like, where they exercise their foolishness. Like, again, if you're a fool and you fall in with a bad gang, like the guys in the first parak of Mishlei, then you're going to get killed probably, or you're going to, whatever. But like, if you're a fool in like an office workspace, so then you're going to upset people, but that's not going to like cut years off your life, But in other words, Rishayim are definitively taking a track that is going to like 9 in every 10 Rishayim die prematurely or what. I don't know. Like, I don't know what this is.
Can't we expand your third category to include more than fools? Meaning, can't we just say it's a spectrum, and on one end of the spectrum you have fear of God, on another you have wicked people who don't fear God, and then everybody is somewhere in between?
I can tell you why I don't want to say that, but I would have to give away my idea, which I can give my idea now. But
well, at some point, I also have been working on an alternative.
Okay, why don't you go first then? Why don't you give your idea? When I say my idea, if I don't answer your question, then just remind me.
Okay. All right. So I was working at this until the last answer. I didn't have the final thought, but I think that the way I would approach this is the like, what does it mean to lengthen days or shorten years? Like, yeah, we're talking about life, but still, is this like a literal thing? Are they literally living a few days longer or literally living years shorter? And I think that thinking about the effects of fear helped me like understand how I was reading this. Is when you are feeling afraid, it changes how you perceive things. And so if you're living your life, if you're going through life thinking, how can I learn from something, or how can I improve on something, and the things that kind of lead to like wisdom and knowledge, the things that make you pause and contemplate, the sense that you might be not doing that, the sense that you might be missing out on opportunities to live correctly, I think changes the way you perceive time, and the way time affects you. And so if you live without that, if you live trying to say that I'm not afraid of missing opportunities, I'm not afraid of missing knowledge, the effects are the opposite. And so just to concretize that a little bit more is, I think that I've come across people, and maybe this resonates with others, that I've met people before who have no interest in taking life seriously. They're just interested in extending the fun. And that's their primary goal. Everything else is just to be dulled and ignored. And I sort of feel like I can see this person 10 years from now, and they're exactly the same. Nothing has changed. And so they effectively have lost years by lacking that fear, the fear that they're missing out. Whereas on the opposite spectrum, I feel like someone who approaches every day with a sense of fear of like, what could I be doing today? What could I be learning today? They could learn a lot. And I think the reason why that it's days compared to years is because there's an equation. There's like, this equals that. So what one person can do in years, a person who has fear can do in days. And so every day they're living, that they could be living the equivalent of years, versus vice versa. Someone could go years without doing what they could have done in a single day. Okay.
So I really like that for two reasons, one of which I'm saving for the after party. Okay. But I think what Zach is saying is very much in line with what Rabbinu Yona says. And since what Mark said was also in line with that, let's just read Rabbinu Yona now and see if we can work out what Rabbinu Yona is saying. And either this will help us to clarify what Zach is saying, because it's the same idea, or we'll get just another idea from this. And then, I guess either way, it'll help clarify what Zach is saying. So it's a short Rabbinu Yona here. Let's see what he says. Give me a second here. So he says like this. Oops, sorry. Yeah. So there you have, just so you can see it with your own eyes. Radak says, Yiras Hashem, Mavur. This is clear. Who kefal inim b'milas owners is repeating the same thing in different language. All right, great. Okay. Rabbinu Yona says. Yeah.
Also, sorry, one last thing I forgot to say is that the part that I wanted to finish off with was how this applies practically to us.
Sure.
And I was thinking that there's two practical implications, one for the first half and one for the second half. But the first half, I think, was just telling us how we can live our days and like what is possible within a certain day. So it's like, here is something that is possible. Like if you live this way, you can get the equivalent of years. And even more amazingly, I think, is that this isn't, because he doesn't say, and this addresses why he doesn't say tzaddikim, because he doesn't say tzaddikim, he's saying even a person who isn't like this all the time, if you just one morning say, okay, just today, I'm going to live this way, you can still get a lot of benefit from it. Like you don't have to be a tzaddik. Whereas,
Okay, good. So now I'm in conflict. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to say my idea first, because my idea is basically that without all the first part. It's a much more simple pared down idea. So I'm just going to say that, and then we'll do the Radak Yona, and then we'll like try to work it all out at the end. Okay. So my idea is, again, very simple, but the chidush of the pasuk, the new idea in the pasuk is that this is not, okay, let me start with the second half. Okay, the second half is what we've been saying the whole time along, which is that the Russia who seeks to impose his own power hungry or greatness hungry system on reality will attract aggression, and by going against what reality actually is, then he's bound to crash. That's what we've had in the last couple of pasuk, and that's not a new idea. But the chidush in the first pasuk is you don't need to be a tzaddik to get the benefits of Yiras Hashem. It is a spectrum in the sense that any amount of Yiras Hashem, and by Yiras Hashem I mean Mishlei, I mean Yiras Hashem is musar chachma, is discipline of wisdom, is any time you take any area of your life and you apply your mind to it, and then that's chachma, and then you live in accordance with that in a conscious way, that's musar, so that's Yiras Hashem. You will have incremental improvement in your life, and that's why the pasuk focuses on days, because you could prolong your life by years. I do think that that's possible, but the pasuk is emphasizing that you don't need to be, for example, a Yarei Hashem. You don't need to have the personality, the overall personality of someone who fears Hashem. Any amount of Yiras Hashem will increase your life. And like this means, like as an example of this is like, let's say you only attended one Mishlei shiur in your life and you got one idea that you then apply to that area of decision making. That will lead to an incremental benefit that will be real and will actually like prolong your days, And if you do that in 5 areas, it'll prolong it a little bit more. And if you do it in a bunch of areas, it will prolong it a little bit more. So it is an interesting thing that like, it really is a testament to Hashem's chesed, that basically the benefits of Yiras Hashem are available to everybody. And even fools, and this might be an answer to the fool question, is even though fools are against Yiras Hashem on a fundamental level, no one is like we've said all the time, no one is a 100% Mishlei fool. There's no like 100% Evil walking around. There's people have different degrees of the plague of the Evil and the plague of the Ksil, but they exercise Yiras Hashem in other areas, and they're going to get that. The only person who is completely cut off from Yiras Hashem is the Russia who seeks to completely undermine reality and supplant it with his own greatness. That person is like just running for a cliff. But everyone else is going to be like gaining benefits from Yiras Hashem, as much as they're in line with it. So that's not the whole idea of what Zach was saying. I think like that's what I was saying for the last part.
Can I ask you to just repeat how you got from Musar to Yiras Hashem?
Yeah, because the Shlomo definition of Yiras Hashem is Yiras Hashem musar chachma. Fear of God is the discipline of wisdom. That's the definition.
Thanks.
Yeah, and what that means, because again, the person could ask, well, what does that have to do with Hashem? Again, the whole premise of this is that we can't relate to Hashem directly. We can't know Hashem directly. We can only know him through his laws, through the laws of the universe and through the laws of Torah, and therefore when you find Yiras Hashem in Mishlei, it's either going to be referring to the laws of nature that he set up, which Mishlei deals with, or it's going to be the laws of Torah, or I guess the laws of Hashgacha Pratis also, if you hold that Mishlei deals with Hashgacha Pratis. But all of it is like relating to Hashem via his lawfulness, as the king, and that's why it's Yira, is like being in awe or fear of like the authority and the power of the king. Okay, let's do Rabbinu Yona, and I think this is either close to or identical to what Zach was saying. So he says like this: Yiras Hashem tosif yamim, fear of Hashem adds days. Hada'agos machlishos hakoach. So worries or anxieties literally weaken a person's power. Umakarvos ketz hamaves, and bring close the end of death. Okay, meaning if you're a type of person who's worrying, that's going to shorten your life. Okay. Yiras Hashem, but the fear of Hashem, v'hada'aga al ha'avonos, v'chesron avodos ha'elokim, and worry about your iniquities and about your deficiencies in service of God, lo tikat tiktar et hayamim, that will not shorten your days. Aval hayamim al yimei hayira tosif, but days lived with fear of God will be increased. Nemar Yamim al Yamecha Melech Tosif. Okay, I don't know what the context of that is. The king will add days onto your days. Pirush. Okay, so let me just explain what it means there. So Zach was putting it in. Rבינו Yona does this. Rבינו Yona puts things in Torah terms, because he's a Torah, like that's his jam, So he says it in terms of iniquities and deficiencies in service of Hashem. But the way Zach said it, I think, is the same thing, if not broader, which is a person who lives life not worried about like their ambitions or about like things they can't control or about like, value systems, about like what people think, all that stuff. People who are worried about like, am I using the opportunities that I have to improve in my deficiencies? That's what Radak is calling iniquities, or to seek out other areas of growth. That's service of God. So then you're worried, but the nature of that worry is it's going to only lead you into better decision making, more realistic perspectives, greater sense of awareness of like what your capacities are, and that's going to add to your days, both because you aren't stressing yourself out and like and making bad decisions, and because you are actively like seeking growth, and that's like Rבינו Yona's main idea for that part. And is this last part relevant, or is it just proofs? I think it's just proofs here. Yeah. So what do you say? I'm not. Maybe saying that they're identical is wrong, because he's definitely saying a lot less than what you're saying, Zach. But what do you think? What is he saying? Like, resonate with the idea that you're saying, or is it different?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely does. I think the first line sounded very much like what Mark was saying, because I wasn't addressing.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I thought of what Mark was saying in the first part. Yeah.
But after that, it sounds very similar. I think that part of what I liked about the idea that he I'm not sure if he sees it the same and just didn't explicitly say it or would see it differently, is the kind of the natural effect of how when you walk with a certain mindset, it changes how your day is experienced. Whereas I sort of feel like he's seeing it more as like you're gonna end up having literal longer days, or meaning like
that's what I wasn't sure when he says Ava hayamim al yemei hayira tosif. I don't even know. Let me just check my good Rבינו Yona and see if there's a different wording there, because I don't quite know how to read that.
Revisionist?
Give me 1 second.
Sure, sorry.
He says here Ava hayamim al yemei hayira. Oh, okay. See, this is Ava hayamim al yemei hayare tosif. That's what my good Rבינו Yona says. On the days of the fearer will increase. Yeah, I like what you're saying, Zach. I mean, I think what he's saying is true also. I think it will, if you're making Mishlei decisions, it will actually like lengthen your life. But I like the point you were making about how ironically, I think we can learn this one literally and figuratively, because I do think it's true that the wicked will shorten their days. But I also think that what you said is true, is that when you spend like your entire life pursuing like these crazy ambitious Rishayim goals, and then they don't amount to anything, like that's just, even if you don't die prematurely, you've just like thrown away all this time. But the person who is seeking this type of growth and living a life of Yiras Hashem is really like making the most out of each day. And it's going to be like I remember hearing Rabbi Chait say once at a funeral that when the Torah says arichus yamim, length of days, it's talking qualitatively, not quantitatively. Like you can live a short life. Like, I mean, look, like, my go-to example, I mean, Bruce Lee died when he was 32, and the amount of chachma and teaching that he gained and gave, like, is insane. Like, and just using every day like that, is that's like, so he has length of days, not in quantity, but in quality. Yeah, Donnie, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I feel like we're sort of missing what Rבינו Yona is actually saying, which is he seems to be focusing on the fact that people tend to be in a state of anxiety and worry often, and he's saying that there's a healthy concern and awareness of potential consequences and bad outcomes. And he's saying that it's almost like the chidush is that it's okay to worry if you're worrying in reality, if you're worrying in the framework of Yiras Hashem, versus like the anxieties and the machinations of the wicked are just like all folly, fantasy. They're imagining, they're projecting in it. It's not, there's nothing to it. And I think that's what he's almost his chidush is, that there's a sort of thing as a healthy anxiety. I mean, it's not the best. I wouldn't call it anxiety in that context, but there's a healthy sense of apprehension.
That's there's another pasuk in Mishlei that says Ashrei Adam Mefached Tamid, happy is the and praiseworthy is the man who fears constantly. And like when you first read the pasuk, it sounds like it's talking about a person who's like paralyzed with anxiety, but it's talking about a Mishlei type of fear, which is more of a caution or apprehension, like a practical apprehension rather than a paralyzing fear or neurotic fear.
What I like about
the contrast. I'm sorry, just to finish. And the contrast is the Russia Mishlei, right? Is the eat, drink, and be merry, basically no consequence. I don't want to think about it. I just want to live and enjoy. And that's sort of why they're being juxtaposed. That, you know, there is another option. It's not simply like be an anxious mess or be a Russia and not care about consequence. No, there is a healthy consideration of consequence.
Right. Yeah. And again, just to emphasize in practical terms here, you know, it's easy to look at the Rishaim and think that they are confident. Like if you look, you know, if you watch you watch Hitler speak, he looks very confident. But like when you when you see, like, I mean, I just saw a thing about Kim Jong-un and the amount of, I mean, you can imagine the amount of anxiety that he has to go through. I'm not feeling pity for him. I mean, I think he deserves this, but like of propping up this highly fragile society where everyone is just brainwashed based on fear, and he is like in a tenuous position of power, always having to be worried that people are going to like attack him and overthrow him, like that he might get poisoned, he might get like, there might be a rebellion, there might be like, you know, like he's overweight because he just indulges in taiva all day, like you know, it's just like it's constant anxiety, you know. Or you look at like Stalin, of like the paranoia of like any of his people who is his enemy, he has to like completely erase, you know, and like he can't trust any of his friends. And the higher up you get in the Rishaim echelon, the more worry you can have. So in addition to exposing yourself to practical dangers, you're shortening your life from all of the stress and anxiety.
Yeah, what I liked about Donnie's point on the Rabbinu Yona is that it kind of gives very nice, almost like packaged practical outcome from our pasuk, which is basically we all have the capacity to worry, and like if we look at it as a tool, we can use that tool very effectively, or we could misuse it.
And that's because I was a little when Donnie was saying how it's not really the nature of the two worries is very different. I was like, oh, that's annoying that it's the same word, but maybe that's exactly the point. Is like you are going to worry about stuff, you know, but if you focus the worries on things in your control, on decisions you make going forward instead of like getting stuck in the past, on am I viewing the situation realistically, or am I like blowing things out of proportion? You focus it on Mishleic type, you know, perspectives and ways of thinking, then you're harnessing the worry in a direction that's going to benefit you in the long run and diminish the bad kind of worry. Yeah, Rifki?
Yeah, I'm wondering if we could also extend this definition of Yiras Hashem to the idea we were speaking about, I think, on the Mishlei Shabbaton, when we were talking about like if you lived every Shabbos like it was your last Shabbos, then like it would be qualitatively different. So do you think that we could also apply that to like this idea as well?
Yeah. Okay. So I guess I was going to save this for the Mishlei party, but I guess I'll say it now. I'll turn off the screen sharing for dramatic effect. So obviously this is the last of the of this series in this year, and like I mentioned at the end of the last year in the after party. So last week, Monday, I hit 150 Mishlei shiurim. I think this is number 156 or something like that. And so the thing is that I was trying to reflect on what are the differences between my relationship to Mishlei this year and in years past, you know. And I've had a long relationship with Mishlei, you know, but this year was definitely a level up. And I think the level up came from two causes. Well, three causes. Okay, three causes. One is the fact that, I've pretty much before this mostly taught Mishlei in high school. And like, obviously teaching Mishlei in high school is great, but the capacity of the people who I'm giving shiur to is not at the same level as it is here in this group and in yeshiva, and just the amount of thinking, the quality of thinking that emerges from the discussion in this shiur and in my daily Mishlei shiur in yeshiva, it just makes the learning better, like, and again, this is not dissing like, high school Mishlei, but like, it's just, I have gained so much. We're much more thorough. We're much clearer. We go into much deeper. We explore possibilities more, especially in this shiur where we do several possibilities each time. And like the fact that the people in this shiur are older and have had more life experience than like 10th and 11th graders, like I just feel like it's been a much broader and deeper learning experience. Okay, that's number one. The second thing, and this relates to what Rifki was talking about, what Zach was talking about, and what maybe someone else is talking about here, is the fact that it's daily has changed my life. Like it's like every day, it's a combination of this and like my daily Rambam shiur and the Stoic Jew podcast. So those are my daily things this year, of like having a daily reflection tied to specific ideas on to start off my day or like to end off my day. I can like look back at a week and be like, oh, that was the week that was about this idea, or this was the day that was about that idea. And it has like a slow motion effect in a good way on like stretching out each day to be like you start the day thinking about this idea, and then you experience the day through the lens of that chachma, and it imbues the entire day with this sense of like contemplation, not in the sense of like active contemplation, but like the ideas in the back of the mind all day. And like when we have a Monday Night Mishlei, it kicks off the week like that, So I guess my recommendation is like, if you can ever get into a scenario where you are thinking about, it doesn't have to be Mishlei, like it just something that is about like chachma and living as a daily routine, whether that's like reading an idea a day or like, teaching an idea a day or reviewing an idea a day, or even like to say, like, I haven't been using this as like a daily thing, but like the daily Stoic, like one quotation a day, it really has that effect of like Rivka was saying, like you appreciate each day as if it's your last, in the sense that I had this idea that I like took with me today, and like that I carried with me, and like it had this effect, and like you look back at the previous week and like you see the growth that came from that. And I know I'm not being articulate, but like that's been like a different experience this year with Mishlei as a specific thing. And then the last thing, and this is something that like this is much more of a personal indulgence, which I'll just say right now, is like someone was asking me about about learning today, about like how you develop a relationship with learning, and I was saying how there's like two phases. There's when you're in the training phase, where you're in like high school and like yeshiva or seminary, and like you're really working on building skills. And then there's like the going off and being an adult human being, and like you're not in school anymore, and like you're kind of in charge of your own learning. And for some people that occurs like in college, some people it's like after college, some people it's like when they start the workforce, family, whatever, and I was talking with this person about, they were asking me like, what are some tips for like making that transition, and I said like, when you're in yeshiva and seminary, there is a certain thing of like forcing yourself to like acquire certain skills, even when it's not fun. But once you go out into life and like, and you have limited time, you have to follow what you love. Like everyone has certain areas of learning, and it might not be a subject. Like you might just have had certain learning experiences that light you up, that like just make you excited and like just give you this joy. And if you want a relationship with learning in life, you have to find those and like cling onto them and embrace them and make them a part of your life. And like, surprise, surprise, like that's Mishlei for me, And like I think the fact that I've been able to do it on a daily basis has just strengthened my relationship to Chachma in a way that has not reached these heights in the past. And I was saying this when I gave my 150th year last, or 151st year last week, commemorating 150th year, of like, I really do hope that all of you, that all of my students and like, colleagues, like that you have found these areas that you like can make your own and like that give you this joy, and the results will show. Like, it doesn't matter if like you're involved in Mishlei, or like I was giving an example, like someone I know likes learning obscure Mishnayos in like Tahara, and like whatever, man, like, like whether you do a little or a lot, as long as you direct your heart to Shemaim, or whether, just pursue Chachma for whatever reason, like, attach yourself to that, and like you'll reap the benefits. And what our pasuk tells you is you'll get longer life too. Whether it's through what the shot level of like actually affecting your decisions, or like if it's Mishlei Chachma, or like the slowing down of time thing because you're making use of each day in a beneficial way, or like the grand scheme Avital thing of like you're part of a society of Chachma, and the more people do this, then the more we're going to get these benefits, or like the Rabbinu, Yona, Zach, Mark, reducing your worries, like, it's all going to be good. So it's like win-win scenario, so yeah. That was my end of the season reflection there. But if there's anything else on the pasuk, we could go back to that.
Is a question on Rubin Yona. Is he talking about when he says fear of chait? Does that mean he fear of committing a chait, or fear of the time that you have done already?
So he uses the term avonos, and I don't know how Rabbinu Yona uses it, but my understanding of avon from the Tanakh is avon means any fault or distortion. So it's really more talking about the cause of the chait or the effects of the chait, not like a particular action of sin.
Right. So meaning, the consequences or the false ideas or whatever, is that something that you've had a false idea, and now you're afraid of the consequences of having had that false idea, or is it you're afraid that you might have a false idea, or and therefore you're afraid of any sort of consequences that can come if you should come to have a false idea?
I think it's both. I think it's I think you can idea-wise and linguistically, I think it could be both. And same thing with deficiencies in your service of God. That could be like in the past, like you realize that you were deficient on something, or like worried about in the future that you're going to be deficient in something because there's going to be a scenario that's going to come up that you're going to be lacking, or something like that. I think it could be future and future, past, and present.
I just think that the worry of someone who has had an avon and is worried about the consequence of that is greater. But I mean, I guess we see it with maybe Yaakov, because he was always worried about Shemay Yigrom Machay.
Right.
His entire life, and he had a much shorter life than his parents.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the other factor here, by the way, which I guess goes without saying whenever we talk about the subject, is lots of things can affect your lifespan. And this is not saying that it's going to guarantee that your life is going to be long, and it's not saying that it guarantees that the Russia's life is going to be short. It's just saying that this is a factor that will prolong your life, and this is a factor that statistically is going to shorten your life. Okay, so let us officially end the shiur here, and I guess what we'll do is I will use my content WhatsApp group, my the YBT shiurim WhatsApp group, and then as the main means of like notifying people when there is another shiur in Mishlei. Again, I don't know the program. I'm going to be back, God willing, in the end of July, and the beginning of August for the Migdal YBT program. I don't know what the shiur schedule is, so it's possible I could give shiur that week for 2 days, and then I'm going to go back to Seattle again we'll see how I'm feeling, whether I want to like give shiur in Seattle, but I kind of am at the point where I feel like I need a break. So I definitely need a break up until July, and then we'll see through July, and then we'll see what happens after that. But yeah, anytime you want to discuss Mishlei, though, you know where to find me. So let's officially end the shiur here, and then we'll I guess we'll hang around until Mariv or after party, whatever we want to do.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for all the learning.
I was wondering, I don't remember exactly what Zach said that you said, like, oh, like I'll come back to that, but was that
was
like
what I was talking about.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah. When Zach mentioned it, I was like, oh, should I say it now? And then when you mentioned it, I was like, okay, fine, I might as well say it now. You were close enough to the end.
Just a question, maybe we addressed it, but just going through the points. So I feel like the part that you and I were talking about of how each day is kind of its own opportunity based on how the pasuk is phrased, I think gives a very nice practical like suggestion or opportunity or outcome from the pasuk. And I guess I'm wondering, without that, like I feel like the Rabbinu Yona doesn't talk about that point. So what's his practical outcome?
I mean, it's I forgot to mention this in this year. So this is a disagreement that I have with my Mishlei Chavrusa, Ken, that's been coming up more and more, that we have different standards for what kind of chidush to expect from a pasuk, like how novel does the idea have to be, and he and a lot of the Mefarshim seem to have a much lower threshold. Again, I repeat, Radak says this idea is obvious and it's saying the same thing in different words, you know, like it just seems to like that they're okay.
I did have an idea about that. Sorry to jump in, but in the beginning I was like also a little bothered by that. And I had you can tell me if this is fair to say, but could we say that idea that's obvious is obvious because King Solomon wrote it? Meaning, like, historically, we've had now a long time for that to infiltrate itself
definitely a possibility
into our society. So maybe when he said it, it was very novel, and now
I actually was reading in the hold on just a second here. If I could find it really quickly, I'll read it, and if not, then I'll just say it. In the Alter translation, which is the academic guy, he talked about like what was a revolutionary thing in Shlomo Melech's time. All right, I'll just summarize it. He says like it was a very common thing. You know, we have a lot of pasuk in Mishlei about how like if you apply chachma and you work hard, then you'll make money. And if you are lazy or stupid, then you will become poor. So he was saying how that was a revolutionary idea in Shlomo's time. Because what did people think? People thought that if you are rich or poor based on what the gods allot to you. So like you are blessed by the gods, and like you're rich, and like if you're cursed by the gods, then you're poor, and nothing you do can change that. So like we're in a very capitalistic, work ethic society. So for us, we view those psukim not as revolutionary in their like general message, but in the specific ideas we learn. But in Shlomo's time, it might have been revolutionary in the basic notion that you can change your financial status, you know? So maybe what you're saying is true, Zach, is like, yeah, like the reason why Yiras Hashem is a household brand is because Shlomo Melech made it such, you know? That's a good answer, actually. Yeah.
It reminds me, I wish I knew like where I heard this from, but it was somebody complaining about like movies that are seen as classics as being cliche. And like, wait, did you say this maybe in high school?
I have said this. I don't know if this is where you heard it from, but I have said this.
Okay, it's very possible. You take it away.
No, I was gonna say, right, is like people look at the first, someone recently watched Star Wars for the first time, and they were like, it was fun, but it was like a little cheesy, you know, like all the battles and stuff. And I was like, yeah, it's cheesy because it launched the genre, you know, and like it was revolutionary then, and it did it so well that everyone copied it, and like now in retrospect it looks cheesy. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
I think we spoke specifically with, I remember with Mary Shelley's book of the Frankenstein, how it's like, oh yeah, it's a dark and creepy like Halloween space where like of course bad things are gonna happen. It's like, well, that's where like it all started.
That's funny. Yeah. So this is good methodology of like, again, I gave a shiur on this with the Lamdeha about being careful about anachronistic fallacies where you take modern ways of thinking and project them into the past. And like what Zach is making me realize here is that like doing that with your standards for chidushim, for novel insights, is also a type of anachronistic fallacy, where like you're expecting a chidush based on what are norms in the world right now, and back then it was very different. And like in this shiur in Lomdeha, the point I made was, I said, let's say, so the Torah is against avodah zarah. I think we could all agree with that. So let's say the Torah absolutely succeeded in wiping out avodah zarah, right? Which eventually it will. So what's going to happen is you're going to have some kid who like looks in the Torah, sees 51 mitzvos about avodah zarah, and he's like, oh, the people need to be told not to bow down to sticks and like do a superstition. Like that's dumb. Like, why does the Torah need to say this? The same way that people do that now with like all the sexual stuff having to do with incest. Like oh, you need to be told not to like have all these incestuous relationships. The answer is yeah, because back then people did them, and people did avodah zarah, and it's great that we've moved past that, but it's gonna, when you're standing at the end of that progress, you're gonna look back and say, oh, that looks outdated, but that's just because it was so successful, Yeah, it's a good point. Really quickly, I mean, I'm just curious, and no pressure to like fabricate something, because I know some of you learned Mishlei between, let's say, high school, between high school and like this year, essentially, either on your own or in shiur or whatever. How would you describe the I guess the most recent level up in your relationship with Mishlei, either in understanding or practice of it? I'm just curious.
Wait, could you explain the question?
Yeah, the question is like from either the time you started learning Mishlei or just from the time you learned it in high school until now. Presumably there have been level ups. I mean, I've seen it in everyone here, but how would you characterize that level up? Like I characterize my level up this year from the fact that I'm learning it daily, and the fact that I'm learning it with people who are more able to learn it, but like, I'm curious how would you characterize like, level up in learning, or level up in practice, or level up in integration of Mishlei into your life?
I have two thoughts.
Yeah.
One of my thoughts, I mean, it's like very basic. It's just like, I think the fact that we've been learning it for so many years already, that's just like naturally, like, I don't think it's specifically necessarily like this year. I think just like by the pure fact of learning it for this amount of time, like obviously it's just gonna, you're gonna see the ideas more and stuff like that. But I also think like this shiur specifically, I think is, like you were saying this earlier, like it's just a much higher level. And I think, at least for me personally, like, I feel like it's been a challenge to like force myself to like try to get to those ideas and not just like think on a more basic level. Yeah, I feel like I have more thoughts, but I have to.
Okay, good. Yeah. I mean, feel free if you want to share them later on also. Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, I definitely noticed, like, I mean, we were just talking about this, how it's like hard to see the starting point when you're looking back at it.
Yeah.
But I think that like one thing I definitely noticed is that in high school, when I would see a pasuk, I would have to like stop myself from just assuming an idea. And like it definitely became more natural for me to be like, okay, well, what does this mean? What questions do I have on this? And then think of an idea like based on those questions and stuff like that.
Definitely. I feel like that is that's like definitely the hallmark of like Mishlei methodology maturity, of like, you don't just jump to the first thing you think of,
I mean, it's not that, like, it still happens a lot.
Yeah, no, it does, but you're right. Yeah. But let's say like even catching yourself doing that and then saying, okay, when you put that aside and then think through it, like that's really what matters,
I definitely noticed the difference between high school learning Mishlei and now learning Mishlei. I think in high school, like, I kind of thought of Mishlei as just like, oh, this is like a cool thing to learn, like, this is so practical, like, it's so different.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, it's definitely still the same way, but I think I started using it like as like the way that my life was progressing, like, changed. I think I started using it as like a very grounding tool. Like, it would just become like, okay, but like it all comes back to like Monday Night Mishlei, like, we'll just like it's just very like, it's very grounding. I think
that's good. I mean, and it's funny because like maybe every sefer could be that, but I feel like Mishlei like just lends itself to that because it's so interwoven with life, and I also have this like, there's this feeling that I have of like there are lots of areas in Torah that I have questions on or like ignorance about or like problems. But like I know that Mishlei works, you know, and there's like a certain security in like I know that Mishlei works, and the more I learn, the more I know that it works. Like it does what it sets out to do, you know.
Yeah, to that note, I think that's also similar to I think how it's evolved for me. I think in high school when we did Mishlei, it was very much like don't be stupid. You know, stupid things you do will lead to stupid outcomes.
Yeah, which is pretty accurate. I mean, it's not incorrect. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that now it is it's evolved along that same line of thought. It just got more complex, which is like if you pause to think about good behaviors, you'll understand much more layers of the good outcomes.
That's good. Yeah, that definitely is a good description of the way that your mind specifically strives to get ideas out of the pasukim. Yeah, and it's good that you were able to develop that.
I'm the chronologically. Oh, did somebody want to finish something? I'm the chronologically oldest member of the group, and my story started with learning at Rabbi Moskowitz's the very first time. I was fortunate enough to be there, and I whipped out my steno tab, and I knew what the subject was going to be, but I was like ready for him to give me all the answers. And I am sort of the baby of the group because when I learned about this shiur, I was like, oh, I'm too old to, I don't know how to think. But if you don't know how to think, how will you start to think unless you just make that jump, you know? And so I listened for the first month or 2 months, and I was like so scared because I didn't know how to ask questions. And it's like osmosis that all your brains have somehow like come over the internet into my brain, and like, you can do it, you know, just say it, you know. And I mean, my ears are burning right now, and my sons, both of them have been role models for me. And I remember when I first really understood about learning, Johnny came into, Johnny was at the house with his, when he was in Northwest Yeshiva High School, and they were going to learn at my house. It's the first time I ever heard learning so loud, and it was just so, exciting. And I was like in the kitchen thinking like, so this is what learning is? It's so loud, you know? And that excited me, you know, and I wanted a part of that too. So just being brave enough to be like, my friends and my generation, my peers are like, oh no, I've heard Matt before. There's no way that I can join something that a shiur of his. But I'm like, well, the question now I ask is, well, why not? You know, so, but it's just in the doing, you know, you think about it and you get scared about it, and then you just do it. Just, you know, just take that first tiny little step. What, you know, and if you fall down, so what? Get up again, you know, so. I love it. I just love it. Thank you all. It just makes me so excited. All right, Matt, I'm done. Okay. I'm sorry, Rabbi Matt, sorry.
Okay.
I just want, if I can, and you sort of, it's a little in contrast to your final point in the wrap up.
Sure.
I don't think it really takes away from it, but the notion of chidushim, I think there's a natural tendency towards, you know, it doesn't have to be a chidush or a mishlei sort of wrapping up the perek or the group of pasukim. It's okay if it's repetitive, but every single time you guys sort of delve in and try, there's something always priceless almost that comes out of it. And there's something very remarkable about that, but also that sort of builds an ambition in effort and goal when approaching these things. And I you know, I can tell you, even my involvement in Stage Learning, it was a very, very meaningful and, you know, an insightful experience to realize, you know, take a step back. If it's bothering to be said again, and the Rishonim were bothering to deal with it, and somebody thinks that they're very likely it's worth, you know, sweating and actually, in fact, you know, juxtaposing the risk that it's repetitive, you know, that almost forcing you into seeing, well, what's different here and why. And, you know, using that as like, instead of as a wall, almost as a tool to sort of get you to the other side.
Yeah. That's well said. Well said. Yeah. Yeah. That's why I disagree with Ken. I always will look for a chidush if I can. Yeah. Alrighty.
Chicago, thank you very, 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 very much.
Thank you for joining us.
Amazing.
Yeah, and thank you, everybody. Looking forward to next season. Yep. All right. Until next time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Shneelais.
Appreciate it.
Bye. See you on Friday.
Okay.